Alright, we're going to make some agar pots. So, these little wide mouth half-pint jars, I use these things instead of petri dishes. They work for me. You know, it's easier to do all the transfers of the agar into the plate. I transfer and then I sterilize, and then it just stays on the shelf ready for use. Essentially, they're just canned agar plates ready for use. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I throw them together. It's pretty simple. Really, I don't use an airport lid. I don't use a syringe port. I don't use gas exchange, anything like that. I basically just use the jar and put the agar in it, then sterilize it and use it. It's got a great big air reservoir inside. It's really all the air that your microorganism needs to grow. Alright, so we're going to be doing a double batch of agar for this. Essentially, we're going to be starting with 2,000 milliliters of water. We're going to add 8 grams of charcoal agar, activated charcoal powder, and we're going to add 40 grams of agar powder. Now, the agar powder is the thickener. This is the stuff that makes your water solid, essentially. It comes out of seaweed. If you don't use enough, you're going to end up with something that looks kind of like applesauce. And if you do see that, go ahead and throw it out. It's not good for your stuff, okay? Mushrooms won't grow well on that. You want solid, tight agar, nice rubbery disc inside. That's what they like to grow on, okay? And adding the charcoal content basically helps to balance the pH, increases the porosity within the structure of the agar, gives a place for the mycelium to kind of grow into a little bit. It also has some qualities that help to suppress some of the contamination that can be present in the wild samples I'm going to be transferring into. Alright, so 2,000 milliliters of water. So I like to use reverse osmosis water. You can use regular tap water for this. I'm just using reverse osmosis because I have it. Also, there's a high mineral content in my local water, so you know, I just want to make sure I have nice, predictable results. And be watching to make sure that this gets to 2,000. Alright, so to this. Now you can go ahead and add your ingredients cold and then heat it up. One thing that helps with actually is keeping your agar powder from sticking to everything, because this is incredibly hygroscopic. If you get this around water vapor, it'll start soaking it up instantly. You'll get like a glossy sheen across the top of any surface of agar powder that you see, and then it becomes tight. It kind of solidifies, so it's almost like it becomes a type of mild concrete in the form of water if there's not enough water. So if you add it cold, you will avoid that steaming effect where your agar powder stays on your tool. Okay, so 40 grams of agar and 8 grams total of the charcoal. Alright, so start with the charcoal. Okay. So, this is handy. This stuff is just a wellness aid. Activated charcoal is available at pharmacy, and it's exactly what you need. So all you have to do is take these little dry capsules and just pop them in. There's a little bit of cellulose that goes with it. It doesn't matter. Honestly, it just dissolves in the water. I would just go ahead and throw the whole pill in. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now for the agar, I need Now, I usually do a little extra dose of agar beyond what the recipe calls for. And that's because I have been burned. And let me tell you what that means. When you have agar that sits around, you know, you buy the agar, if you buy a good amount, your agar powder, you don't use it all at once. You just use it bits at a time. And as you do, it can age. And as it ages, it can lose the ability to gel up very nicely. And increasing the amount of agar that you use can actually fix that problem. If you just throw in a little bit of extra agar, make sure that you get a little bit of extra tightness in that disc of completed agar, the finished agar, the water agar. And if you have loose agar, or if it's developing any looseness, this is a good way to fight that, because it'll go ahead and gel right up on you if you use a little bit of extra, and it won't really affect anything regarding the outcome. So I will tip this in. Don't breathe it in. Okay. All right. Over there. Okay, our ingredients are in the pot. I'm going to plug it in. So this cooker I'm using is actually, it's one of my first pressure cookers I started doing this stuff with. Meet my friend Wolfgang Puck here. The Wolfgang Puck 8-quart electric pressure cooker was my best friend in mycology for a few years. And it may take a while to get anything done, but it will do it reliably. And in all honesty, you don't have to sit there and watch it the same way as you do a big All-American sterilizer. I'm currently rocking the All-American 941, and does a great job, but I'm just telling you that you can definitely get a lot of stuff done with this guy. And one thing I'm going to get done with it is making a nice batch of agar. It's just something that you really shouldn't be doing in your All-American pressure cooker. Cooking like a cooking pot with the lid off. They do advise against doing that. This one, however, this can handle it. It's just a electric heating element at the bottom, and you know it's electrostatically controlled so that it'll boil your water for you. Keep it within the boiling range. For the pressure cooker, I just use it as a hot pot. Honestly, I just heat the stuff up and give it a little mix with my immersion blender, unplug, and then I just use my dispensing syringe and I take bits of that and put it directly into the agar pots in the amount that I want. So this is the part where I watch water boil. Alright, handy. So basically I'm just going to let that cook in, and once it gets hot enough, it'll start trapping all that charcoal inside. Right now it seems like it's riding up on that foam, but it won't before too long. It starts getting a little weird when it gets hot. It goes from looking like a broth to getting kind of a little viscous. Check out what it looks like here. You know, sometimes people think that the more expensive your equipment is, or you know, the more commercial your area is, the more amazing results you can actually achieve. You know, you might be able to process more material at a time, or guarantee a little bit different quality of space or something with what you got. But I mean, you can repurpose things from around your home and do this. Honestly, I mean, this thing is just a big electric soup pot. You know. This is a stick blender for making soup, right? So all you do is you just heat it up and mix it, blend it all together. I use the same process, different recipe, you know, but for my spalting stuff, I make all those little agar pots for spalting wood. You can take that colonized agar and you can apply it directly to hydrated lumber or green wood, and the fungi that's growing on that agar will eat directly into the wood and go ahead and create spalting effects. And you know, I use the same recipes and methods with my wood-loving mushrooms that I grow for you know, producing actual mushrooms instead of spalted wood. Basically, you just take the chunks of the colonized agar and you drop it into your grain spawn. Start your grain spawn right from agar. Go from grain spawn, you know, sterilized grain, turn that into grain spawn. Put that onto a pasteurized sawdust, and there you can grow mushrooms from that. You know, but growing these little agar pots is the heart of the hobby, essentially. This is past liquid culture. The agar pots are definitely not a liquid culture process type of thing. What you want to be able to do with these agar pots is you want to be able to open them up and get to the contents inside. When you're working in front of a laminar flow hood or in a still air box space, so that contaminants stay out of it, essentially. These agar pots will, well, at least the ones with nutrition, will multiply any spore that gets in there. Anything that gets in there will be able to propagate and take over. So you got to keep them completely clean. The way I do liquid culture and the way I have said to do it in my tutorial allows you to work with a totally sterile liquid, well, totally azenic liquid culture using sterile techniques, and transfer that around safely, even in open air conditions, but you're still keeping it very azenic. You're still keeping every type of spore out of there, because if you get anything into it, it'll wreck your grow. So, yeah, just another way of doing sterile process or sterile transfers, essentially, using azenic grow methods. Azenic means that inside this little pot is going to be only one organism growing, and that's the mushroom or the fungus that I intend to introduce. So I'll just prepare a nice little agar bed for it, and then it'll be a charcoal agar disc waiting to receive whatever fungus I choose to put in there. Alright, this agar is starting to get there, so check it out. It is starting to steam up a little bit. Nice and emulsified there. We do not have to let this thing boil. You don't. All you have to do for activating agar powder to get it nice and viscous is just make sure you get it nice and hot, you know, but it doesn't have to boil. This is starting to put up a lot of water vapor. This is starting to get really warm to the touch here on the pot. This is exactly what we want. So this agar is activated at this point. We can go ahead and portion it into our pots. Just going to unplug my heating element so it doesn't keep on heating up past this point. Basically, this is a 30 milliliter syringe. I put about 15 milliliters in each one of these jars, and that's it. That's the process. So I would then put the lid on these things. You have to kind of cover them loosely. You want to make sure, do not screw those lids on. You have to keep them loose because it has to be able to vent out the pressure that builds inside the jars while they cook. Very important, okay? So leave your lids kind of loose. just put the lid on like that, and then just I'm going to use a different one. This has got the agar powder all over it. Ugh. It looks terrible. I need good lids. That looks really bad. Okay, so get a couple of clean looking lids. One. Gently put the lid ring in place. Don't tighten it. Okay. And just make yourself a little stack. I have been using these lids. I've been using these lids for a really long time. It's 2025 now. This is from 2018. Now, it hasn't been used repeatedly though, I can tell, because it hasn't been warped or anything. Generally, to get the lid off, once this is all cooked and assembled and sterilized and everything, when it's ready to use, you have to kind of pry it. Sometimes that leaves a little deformity on there, and that deformity can prevent a full gas seal. So you want to make sure when you're reusing your lids, don't use them if they look deformed at all in any particular area from prying the lid off of the container, okay? Because that can mean that when you go through the sterilization process, there's not a perfect seal between your lid and your container, and if there's not, then when it cools off, it is going to pull in air, and it can pull in contaminated air through the little bit of crack that you have. It only takes one spore to throw off your grill, so just make sure that your lids, if you choose to reuse them, make sure they're not deformed in any way, okay? Or rusty. They can be just a tad rusty when you start, but if it's anything beyond that, don't use it. If it's rusty at all on the bottom where the seal is, definitely don't use it. It's not food. It's not our food. It's the mushroom's food. I would never suggest that we store our own food in lids that have a little bit of rust on them. That's always a bad idea for canning. But this is mycology. We're feeding mushrooms here, so we're cooking for mushrooms. It's good to keep that mixed up periodically. You know, the contents can settle a little bit. It's not as bad when you're using just charcoal and just agar. But when you use preparations with yeast in particular, yeast extract. The yeast extract likes to fall to the bottom as sediment, especially when it's particularly hot and very liquidy in the agar. It doesn't do it quite so much once the agar is set. Obviously it becomes more of a gel, but you have to kind of keep it moving a little bit, keep it emulsified, and emulsify as much as possible so you break up those particles in order to make sure that the stuff remains light and floats throughout your agar preparation. It's funny seeing all these lids that have the old writing on them. I've actually stopped doing the writing pretty much because I am continually looking at the same numbers and the same lids and the same species which aren't in there. I use a label maker now, so I have to tell you, number one upgrade for anybody in mycology, anybody starting out in mycology, is a nice label maker. It's just nice to print out really even, professional looking labels for your stuff, and it keeps the scribbles from getting you down, honestly. If you're looking at a row of neatly labeled little containers that you made and put a lot of time and trouble into, it kind of, in all honesty, it does elevate the experience a tad. And, if it's something you're doing at the hobby level, you might as well do it for your enjoyment. Your enjoyment is really what this is all about. Watch that hot agar. Boy, if that stuff gets on you, you're gonna know it. It's really good to keep a glass of cool water nearby, by the way. If this stuff gets on you, it's a little bit like napalm. The heat just keeps on being hot for a while, so don't try to shake it off. If you get it on you, immediately reach for that glass of water. Trust me, it'll help turn this from a second degree burn into a first degree burn if you just keep water nearby. Okay, it's important. You want to make sure as well that you're not shooting your agar into there. It's possible to just squeeze hard, especially get excited about the process. Maybe you've never done it before. Oh boy, let's do mycology. Like, you hit the plunger on that thing and it just, I can tell you, it shoots. So just take it easy, move at a normal pace. Don't shoot hot agar with a lot of force, or you will feel it. And if you do, keep your cool water nearby. Once that cools off more, it'll make like a solid blob of something that you can actually push off with your thumb easily and cleanly. This one's still warm though, and now I have black agar on my thumb. So. Right. See this lid? You see that lid there? I'm not using that lid. It's kind of crusty looking, a little rusty right up under the seal. It's a bad idea, lid. So off you go. Well, I'm glad I bought more lids because I am throwing out a few lids today. Rusted. That was not too bad. This one's a little rusty on the top, but actually on the bottom it's not bad, so I'm going to go with it. Last run for you, buddy. messed up. This one's all warped. Apparently, I just noticed it. The agar's cooled off considerably. It's not really hot anymore, which means that it's going to start gelling up on me soon. Still warm though. If that happens, I just turn the heat back on for a little bit. This is getting on me. Okay, let's see. A double batch is really too much. I think I could have gotten away with 1,500 milliliters of water, but you know, the thing about that is you don't really want to go under about 1,000 with these batches with the immersion blender, because then it becomes difficult for the immersion blender to actually have enough liquid to really mix it up properly. So I like to do at least one batch starting with 1,000 milliliters of water. Generally, I will start off with a double if I'm doing a whole bunch of jars. I don't need quite that much, but it's good for the mixing. It's really mixing in there. That's it. 5 more. I need more lids. That one's got agar. That's it. Oh, those are the narrow ones. Wow, shoot. I'm out of lids. Okay. It's a deformity. Well, okay, well, I'd rather make 40 good ones than, 40 good ones and 5 bad ones. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. I guess I'm out of lids. Turns out the lids I thought I had are the narrow jar lids. So hey, there's a tip. Make sure you have the right jar lids before starting this project and then throwing several jar lids out along the way. You can learn this kind of stuff from this channel, Hit the subscribe button for more. Alright, well then, that's done. Agar's done. I like to just leave the agar in there until it cools off completely. And it just turns into a gel, just a block of gel. And then you can snap it off cleanly. It lifts away from a non-stick surface, and it'll snap right off of your immersion blender as well. So it's just kind of handy. I just shut it off and leave it till the next day. Yeah, I can get one more. Just clear off the agar. There we go. I don't want that agar powder trapped between the jar ring and the lid. It'll you get that kind of concrete thing, you know? Make the lid stick and be a potential vector for contamination, I'm sure. Okay, spent like 15 minutes setting up this shot. Hi, we're loading a pressure cooker. Shoot. Well. Okay, see, I got lucky there. Lost my pile, but all the agar is solid. I waited until it cooled off, so now we have a big spill inside the jars.